Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel and the WCW Saturday night edition for the 15th of February 1991, or 92, I'm sorry. And we open with Bagwell and Zinc versus uh, Gary Sawyer and Buddy Lee Parker. I didn't know because early '92 is before my fandom of WCW on a weekly basis began. I did not know that Bagwell and Zinc were tag team for a while. Would have been an interesting longer term run. Bagwell with some side headlock takeovers, basic maneuvers here. Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker is eventually the leader of the power plant. Bagwell managing a cradle suplex, almost like the perfect plex, getting a victory for his team after Zinc hits a couple of really decent drop kicks, among other things. Terry Taylor up next. Terry Taylor facing off against an enhancement talent of his own. Bagwell and Taylor kind of been going at it a little bit back and forth on the microphone in previous weeks. Dan Garza gets beaten by submission by Terry Taylor in quick order here. And again, Taylor kind of cinches up on front face locks, gets a vertical suplex, takes the man over. Bagwell is on commentary for a good bit of this, and Taylor manages a back suplex, a back breaker, and then eventually kind of heads out after a quick victory. Taylor kind of doing his own thing, gets up in Bagwell's face after the match, teasing their feud, but also Terrence Taylor managing to get the victory as mentioned, hitting the firearm and then the modified Boston Crab and getting the victory there. Terry Taylor, certainly Terrence Taylor at that time, a big deal. The WCW Magazine review series here comes up, but not before Taylor basically gets in Bagwell's face and tells him to go away. He doesn't deal with rookies. Continuation of the hype for the Sting and Luger series, as it were, and Eric Bischoff kind of hyping that whole run, also hyping the return of Vader, and Sting, eventually becoming a major deal there. The highlights for the upcoming pay per view: Ron Simmons and Cactus Jack is talked about. Van Hammer and Diamond Stud is talked about. Mark Bagwell and the Tailor Made Man also discussed. PN News and Mr. Hughes. 8-man, El Gigante, Johnny Bad, Big Josh and Mike Graham versus Young Pistols, Vinny Vegas, Dallas Page. All of these are upcoming matches at the Super Bowl show. And again, Super Bowl, kind of a big deal within a couple of weeks here. Mr. Hughes up next, and Hughes kind of fighting after being primarily the bodyguard for Lex Luger for a while. Harley Race still out there, and Hughes going at it with Big Josh. Big Josh, otherwise known as Matt Bourne. Pretty basic match here. Nothing necessarily to write home about. Hughes stays on his feet for the majority of the early part of the match, and Big Josh uh, gets hit with a roll of coins in the finish of this one to give him the final victory and advantage. Obviously, Mr. Hughes, uh, to me, better in WCW than anywhere in the world as far as his singles run. I liked him both as a babyface and heel here. I liked him in the bodyguard role as well. Hughes, certainly, much more a brawler. I don't know that he ever connected anywhere but in WCW, to be honest, in terms of as a talent. Maybe some ECW stuff, but he wasn't there for very long, refusing to do jobs as it was. But needless to say, victory for him. Then we go to continuation of Sting and Lex Luger trying to get Luger fired up when he's facing off against Ric Flair, and the friendship of Sting and Lex Luger is highlighted there for the betrayal at Starrcade 91, seen as a big deal. Then we move to a Johnny B. Bad squash match here. Johnny B. Bad still a heel in this point in 91. Doesn't really make a complete babyface turn for several more months yet, but you can kind of see the fans are getting behind the goofiness of the character, for lack of a better term. Um, and it's kind of it's there certainly. And the highlights of this end up going through. I believe this match is actually from maybe another program because Johnny B. Bad, faces off in this match pretty quickly here. Hits a couple of tackles and drop downs, and Johnny B. Bad still doing the boxer things, so doing the boxer shuffle as well. Deep arm drags and other basic maneuvers there, and getting the kiss that don't miss and the sunset flip. Dusty Rhodes saying he completely endorses the nature of the win for things here as it relates to. He believes that Sting is going to defeat Lex Luger for the championship, endorsing Sting. Big part of Dusty Rhodes being a former NWA champion. Just him giving that endorsement, I think, is enough for fans to take Sting a little more seriously going forward here. Then we move to a continuation of things. There is a focus of Rick Rude in a squash match here. Rude, I think they've interspersed again, voiced over stuff. Rick Rude again in the squash match. Rick Rude also managing to get, as the U.S. champion, a little bit under the skin of the fans. Maybe a couple of minutes, the enhancement talent gets a couple of shots in, a couple of punches. But Rude hits the Rude Awakening and things in under a couple of minutes. Paulie dangerously says that Ricky Steamboat is going to be handled once and for all. Brilliant Paulie promo. Paulie is phenomenal. He also says the Dangerous Alliance is basically being discriminated against and continues that going forward. We then see Dustin Rhodes continuing his foray into action here. Dustin Rhodes facing off against the benefit of Bob Cook. 325 beats him with a bulldog. Pretty basic match here. Rhodes hitting a couple of arm drags. Rhodes not necessarily unwilling to go in the direction of getting things done. But again, punch kick, arm drags, and basic stuff by Dustin Rhodes. Really trying to keep things going in his general direction. And then we see a Young Pistols against the Steiner Brothers match. Young Pistols, I believe, your multi-time, at this point, U.S. Tag Team Champions. The Young Pistols and the Steiners really do put on a decent clinic of a match worth going out of your way to see. I know there's a lot of squash matches on this particular edition, but the Young Pistols, Steve Armstrong and Tracy Smothers, certainly proving their value and worth to the company as a whole here in this particular contest. And again, the nature of that is a pretty big deal, and they are the U.S. Tag Team Champions at the time. Scott pins Tracy Smothers, following Bulldog, double team Smothers and Armstrong. Didn't come out with the belts and weren't announced as champions, but they were acknowledged as champions in the commentary. Odd that they would do that, but anyway, the Steiners are in primary control for the majority of the early parts of the match. Also, the Young Pistols are kind of getting thrown around pretty impressively, including atomic drops and belly-to-belly suplexes by Scott Steiner. Scott Steiner, even here in 1992, certainly one of the more, I don't know, even though that I would say better, but one of the more determined talents, as it were. Then we move to the Steiners getting the Frankensteiner win and a Dangerous Alliance, Larry Zbyszko and Arn Anderson going at it with Ricky Steamboat and Barry Windham. With Steamboat and Windham having been friends, but Steamboat and Rhodes are the tag team champions, I believe, at the time. the Ninja on the outside. A decent match here, worth going out of your way to see in terms of the both the selling of Ricky Steamboat and just kind of some go rounds here. Steamboat gets beat on by Anderson for quite a while. Basic maneuvers. Anderson kind of cuts the ring off and uses Zbyszko. Zbyszko and Anderson trying to slow the match down. Steamboat does the majority of selling throughout the match. Hot tag off to Barry Windham. Windham comes in, brawling quite a bit. Anderson even hits his trademark spine buster. And Windham, when he finally does come in, starts to clean house a bit, brawling with Arn Anderson, including some really heavy punches and other basic things. Punch drunk is Anderson, and then we go to the continuation of the brawl, taking us right to the end of the program. Hip toss by Windham, among other things. Zbyszko comes in at the last minute, tries to cut his man off, and ultimately hits a swinging neckbreaker. The Dangerous Alliance, though, is pretty unable to get things going in their general direction. Steamboat hits top rope maneuver, and the Ninja goes after Paulie dangerously. This match goes to a close. Steamboat getting the top rope splash on Anderson, giving his team the win. Babyface's close. A good match, and a good night for the most part on WCW Saturday Night. A couple weeks before Super Brawl 2, which, for the record, is my favorite Super Brawl. We'll be back with more right after this.